Nice crowd tonight. Thank you very much. We ready, Calvin? Welcome to our third and final Coopersville Schoolhouse of History evening for the season. And tonight our topic is Coopersville social life, which kind of makes people smile a little bit, I think. So I'm going to read a couple of items from a well-known book, well-known in Coopersville, about St. Joseph's Church, but it takes in all life around Coopersville. In the early 1900s, during the winter, people in Coopersville, St. Joseph's parishioners would have card parties. They'd take turns in different people's homes. And Sister Emma Tatro told me when I interviewed her for this book, she said they played from 6:45 to 9:45 p.m. Sometimes as many as 16 to 20 people came. After 9:45, they had a violin player in the group. And those who didn't play cards started dancing until 11 o'clock. A nice and good lunch was served to the group. They had to finish before midnight, as Father had to be fasting to celebrate the Mass the next morning. And then, Father Guerin, we're talking about Father Guerin here, he enjoyed a good card game, but Gladys Sharp, who was an Ashline, she told me that if you were playing cards with Father Guerin and you played the wrong card, you got the devil. He'd scold you if you made a mistake and you lost. So that was one way that people enjoyed themselves in Coopersville back when Coopersville was the center of the world for the people who lived there. They would do it as fundraisers for the church, but also just to have fun. So who else can tell us about something fun, nice clean fun that happened in Coopersville?
Brian, what are you laughing at?
I like the way she said clean.
I know. Well,
There was a lot of fun in Coopersville.
you never know.
Well, this was probably mentioned before. I remember going when I first came here to a dinner across the street from the church.
Yeah,
The
Church Hall.
Church Hall. I remember going when I first came up here
Yeah.
about the dinners there.
Yeah, we had a reception there, we got married.
You did?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you stayed, I mean, you didn't leave her at that point, did you?
No, after
Oh, no.
50 some odd years, pretty hard to leave. She wanted half of what I got.
And if you want to go home tonight and have somebody talking to you, you better say the right words.
Yeah. Yeah.
The ladies of St. Anne built the church hall. They paid to build the church hall, I believe. And Betty Lauren wrote this chapter of the book about Ladies of St. Anne. And they encouraged the development of the church hall in 1924. And she said one of the first events held there was the oyster dinner, one of many crowd-pleasing events that took place in ensuing years. The ladies were also enthusiastic participants in the church fairs, first noted in the minutes in 1924. So besides the oyster dinner, there were, I believe, chicken and biscuit dinners, or chicken pie dinners.
Chicken pie.
Harvest dinners.
And they were very popular. What's that?
Look at them today.
What's that, Norm?
I didn't think anybody got into oysters back then.
I guess it was a specialty. It drew the crowd.
Oyster stew?
I know my great-grandmother, Elizabeth Poisson, who belonged to Sacred Heart Church in Chazy, she was at one of the functions at the church hall one time, and they had different games sometimes, and she played a game, and she won a set of bed sheets. And when my parents became engaged, she gave them the bed sheets as a wedding present. And I think it cost her 10 cents to play the game. So, but she'd saved them for a long time. So, Mrs. Moore, do you have a story about the chicken dinners at the church hall?
Oh, yes, I used to go with my mother-in-law, and she really enjoyed the chicken dinners and ham dinners they'd have too.
Oh, okay.
And they would put whole spices in there. Oh, what
The
spices?
cloves, I think?
Cloves, and she didn't like the cloves in there because she thought they had added mice droppings.
Yes, here's another entry that, Marion Bayshard. What's that, do you ladies have something to share?
Well, you'll have to tell that after she gets to leave. Yeah.
Oh, come on.
Go ahead,
No.
Dory.
Don't make me do all the talking.
Right.
I used to go to the square dances there,
Oh, yeah.
and that's where I met my ex-husband back then.
Square
It
dances
was very nice.
and harvest suppers, turkey and maple syrup dumplings.
Oh.
Yes,
that's
it's
right.
And that's where Al and I danced for the first time, was at the Cooper's.
Yeah.
And that would have
Yeah,
been
we
in
used to always follow that.
fall of 50, I think.
You're right.
And the Mayo Brothers were the band. Come on, Ed, you remember the bands. The Mayo Brothers, and, I mean, the dancing was something else.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
It says here, the ladies of St. Anne held chicken pie suppers every Tuesday and Thursday for 2 weeks in the fall. And Marion Bayshard told me then, we used to get huge crowds. The ladies would contribute chicken pies or apple pies. Manny St. John, who was Marion's father, would run the Wheel of Fortune with his brother-in-law Roy Beaucaire. Are these familiar names to anybody?
Yes.
A fancy booth table was set up, that must be where the sheets came from, and square dance was a popular activity. Oscar Bayshard was one of the callers for the square dancing. Do you remember that, Ed? Is that where you and Bev learned to square dance?
I don't think Billy was there, no.
Who were you dancing with, Ed?
Well, there was
Anybody
that
that
girl
was
that
there.
was single in the hall. I was right next to you.
I'm sure it is.
So when the church burned, lightning struck the church on June 21st, 1934. And after that, they had to raise money to rebuild. So several events were held as fundraisers in Coopersville. Volunteers built a large platform on the lawn at Romeo Bayshard's farm as an outdoor dance floor. That festive evening brought in a substantial amount, this book says, but it doesn't say how much. The church bazaar held for 4 nights in a row that September had special moving picture shows featured on the first 3 nights. This was from the North Countryman. Harold Mayo and his Crescent Orchestra furnished the music. Is that did you say it was Mayo's orchestra?
No. The Mayo Brothers were a Western band. Harold Mayo was the son of Bill Mayo, the barber here in Rouse's Point. And he taught music at Mount Assumption. Yeah. And he came out of that barbering family and traveled all over the Western band. Even to Montreal, he played there quite a
With
lot.
that orchestra? Well, it cost 15 cents for adults and 10 cents for the children to get into these fundraisers on those nights. And then, a few weeks later that year, there's an annual chicken pie supper that cost 50 cents for the meal and dancing, and Mayo's 5-piece orchestra was featured again. It says here in the winter it was too cold in the hall to have activities, so they would hold the card parties in people's homes. Mr. and Mrs. Hector Bayshard, in late November 1934, had a card party, and they brought in $23 for the building fund. And Mr. and Mrs. Mose Bayshard held a card party. And the newspaper reported a similar party will be held next Sunday at Emil Bayshard's in Coopersville. All who want to attend can go. And this was all to raise money for the new church. There's also La Valley's 7-piece Nighthawks Orchestra. Anybody remember that
Must
one?
have been Chet. Is that Chet?
Oh, yeah, I bet it was.
There was also Elaine Tall.
Jimmy Langto, he just passed
Ken, I
away.
know, Ken must remember
Leon.
these.
Leon just passed, eh?
What's that?
Leon.
Leon Langto just passed away,
Yeah,
eh?
he
Yeah.
was in one of those bands.
Jimmy died about 5 years ago.
Did he? I remember.
He
Yeah.
wasn't that old.
Well, they used to play, I don't know, they used to play with Sunset Ramblers in Powers.
Yeah, 80-something, he's in his 80s.
A lot of talented musicians
I
around.
worked with him at the top, I know that.
Doing sort of,
They played in the Legion here back in, well, I run the bar here in 1957 to 60. And I used to have, they come in here and play
Which group was that, Ken?
Sunset Ramblers.
Oh,
The Langto Brothers.
uh-huh.
They played with them. Not all the time, but it was, I remember them playing here, I think the first year. Then they got a band started of their own.
Oh, okay, they split off.
Didn't William Langto play with Smiley Willett?
Yeah.
Sunset Ramblers.
Smiley Willett.
Sunset Ramblers.
The Sunset Ramblers, right?
Yeah, Chilu was a fiddler.
Two, yeah.
Yep.
They used to play over in Lacole Lane there in Lacole, so they got caught up with Internal Revenue here. Apparently, that money they were making over there, they were supposed to declare it here. Yeah.
They played a regular one.
Oh, my
I was
God.
sitting here about a year ago.
Is that right?
Yeah, yeah.
One member of that band is Stoney, at Sunset Ramblers. And he lives in Chazy, or now, not Cooperville, they're just off, you know, where the old St. Police works, that hotel there.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he lives there, Stoney. Oh, yeah, every now and then I see him in Marco's Marina.
And that's his name, Stone?
Stoney, that's his nickname, I don't know his
Yeah.
last name.
Oh. Yeah, Peter Bedard owns that motel there, or that
Yeah.
house, yeah.
Well, La Valley seven-piece Nighthawks Orchestra played on February 26, 1935, according to the North Countryman. And at the end of the little news item, it said, as is always the case when Father Guerin stages an entertainment of any kind, there will be a big crowd on hand for the festivities. So I guess this was in advance of that event. And admission then was 25 cents per couple for cards, for the card part, and 50 cents per couple for social amusements. And then here's one of the Maple, they had the annual Maple Sugar Party at the Church Hall on April 25th, that same year. And it was advertised this way: dip into the delicious maple sugar wax, gobble up the dumplings, and join in on the merrymaking. Aldoria Bayshard, who was wife of Domina Bayshard, always contributed 2 or 3 gallons of dumplings cooked in hot maple syrup. So there was plenty to eat in Coopersville, that's for sure.
I worked for Domino's, boy, she was a
She was
good
a
cook.
Blair.
Who was that?
Domino's wife,
Yeah.
yeah, she was a good cook, because I worked there. We used to have 3 meals a day there.
That would have been Gert Gooley's mother, her father. John and
Yeah,
Gert.
yeah.
Gert was a tremendous cook also.
yeah.
Big family, eh?
And so was Pauline too, and her sister.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if them 2 boys had paid attention to business? I don't have to bail them out, they'd be in jail in Valleyfield there, you can see them for a week at a time. Yeah.
So Eddie, tell us about some of the events at the hall.
Oh, I can remember one event, Ryder Kellogg, and we had to bring food. So I baked a cake at home myself. And I brought it home. And Father Kellogg took a piece of it. He said, I don't know who made this cake, but boy, it's good. I was sitting right there, and I was laughing to myself.
Figured you were going to heaven now, right? Father Kellogg was here in the late 50s.
Nice guy,
Very nice priest.
Where was the hall in Cooperville from the church?
right across the street.
Across the street.
This,
Right
no,
out
it was
there.
Well,
Is it up a little bit
the
there?
other cemetery,
It was
eh?
west
When
of.
the old cemetery ends, there's a piece of land,
Yeah.
right there.
Oh, right there.
Yeah, and the floors in that hall were like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's a picture of it.
That stuff, it felt good that much.
It was the best place to dance. You were guaranteed a good time. It was never a doubt. But it was Father Herman died recently, he was the pastor then.
Oh, yeah.
So, now, why was it the best place to dance?
Because Al Racine was there.
I know it was finally, it was torn down and it was, the fire department practiced a burn there when it was torn down.
I think though you
What
had.
year was that?
So it was,
I gotta look through and find it. I'll do my best.
Wilford Taster bought the hall at the auction.
Oh, he did?
And he built himself a barn out of it, made himself a cow barn out of it in the hall.
Oh, okay.
He took it all apart and
Look at
took the lumber home and
At the
built himself a cow barn in the hall.
Of all the bands
Good
that were in the
That's
area
all that,
locally, like in Plattsburgh and all over.
I went to the auction, I bought one of the stoves they had three stoves
And all
in
pictures
the hall.
and stuff.
One
Three
each
wood
end,
stoves?
one in
And
the-
so many,
One each end, and I bought one of the stoves, the kerosene stove in the hall.
Why did they, get rid of it?
Because it
Because when you being used anymore, they was found a red band. He said, you don't use it? And, who was living there, living there with Birch? He was throwing stones in the hall and breaking the windows. And Birch come over and he said to Father, he said, we can give $1 a piece extra on Sunday, and you won't need the hall no more. Okay, we'll sell the hall. Got rid of it. Well, it was that Birch.
Must have been one of the boys.
The boys, they're throwing, they're
Well,
breaking the windows.
let's not mention any names, we're gonna be on TV.
That's okay,
And it was-
John grew up to be a
It was
state
a
trooper.
long
always
time
right.
ago, and they all grew up to be upstanding citizens, I'm sure.
And the historical society didn't want to be sued, do we?
Mischief, just mischief when they're young, you know.
Jerry, their father, was just as nice a guy as.
Jerry and the mother. She
Yeah.
was very nice.
So what about other entertainment, like swimming and fishing, and did people take advantage of the river in the old days?
Father
Yeah,
Kellogg did.
Well, they were skating in the ice one winter, the 4-gauge board.
Yeah.
So through the
I
ice.
read about that in the paper last Tuesday. I was going through an old North Country. They were playing hockey.
Yeah.
And the puck went under the bridge.
Well, the bridge was where the ice was, it froze too much. And he fell in. And he was hanging in the ice like this there. And hollered, help, help. Instead of helping him, all the kids all ran off the ice, left them there.
That was
And this is the boat that
1926.
was looking out of the wind, on the porch, looking at him, and everybody's looking, but doing nothing.
And he went
After a
on the
while, he
thin,
said, I can't hang out no more, and he went on it.
he went on the thin ice to save those other children that ran, because they were gonna go under there and get the puck. And he said, oh no, the ice is too thin. And he had to move back, and he went. And that was
According to
the
How-
the
how
account
old
that I
was he?
have, it was
How
actually a
old
can.
was he? Wait.
He was 19.
Yeah.
He was 19?
Yep.
That was Earl?
It was Earl Forgate.
Yeah.
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 do you remember that?
Still there.
Do you remember that?
No,
Sure.
they
used to work for my
haven't
father.
gotten out of
Okay.
houses.
Well, that's a shame. Actually, he was a hero, when you think about it.
He certainly was.
He did the right thing.
Yeah.
So I found something else in here. Kids used to play a game called Scrub. You know what that game is, Eddie? This is Edward Deso told me about this. In the spring, 15 or 20 kids would get together in the Bayshard pasture. I don't know what they mean by the Bayshard pasture. There must have been 50 of them. So many Bayshards. It doesn't say. They'd mark out a playing field. The object, it was like baseball. They had to hit the ball, run to first base, and home again. If the runner completed the route without getting tagged, he batted again until he was. It took about all afternoon to get around to bat once, Ed told me. So it must be kids weren't very good at getting them out. Frederick Moores, who grew up in the house across the bridge from, where Chad Poyer lives. His father had a store there and they lived there, and he told me he used to swim from their dock there to the railroad bridge and back again. So he must have been a pretty good swimmer. So what about, and also, of course, kids did play, this is what Ed Diesel told me too. He said in the winter we built a big scraper and used a team to plow an area of the river. On Sundays, people came from all over. We'd each bring a lantern and put them around on the ice. So those were fun times. How about something else?
One thing you don't see anymore is bullhead fishing on the riverbank. Years ago,
Yeah,
lanterns there all the way from Colville all the way to mouth the river. You don't hardly see that anymore. People don't do that anymore.
So in Prohibition time, the bootleggers used to go up the river from the lake with booze. And one year, under the railroad bridge, and the horse went in, but you think, it was still on the, his head is above the water. So they had to go to the neighbors somewhere to get their team of horses and pull them out with the sled.
You're not talking about yourself now, You need to know a lot
Oh,
about bootlegging takes.
My father bootlegged once, he got caught right off.
So
He never did it again.
what I want to know is how much that bootleg booze had to do with entertainment in Coopersville. Was any of that served?
Help build that church.
That's what
The money used to, when they were bootlegging, boy, I tell you, the money was,
it was
there
rolling
was a lot
in.
of money to be made in it.
Albert Bayshore told me he paid his farm with.
My father bought his place for $5,000 in Champlain, not Coverville. But he paid $5,000, he could have bought the whole farm for 10, but being just a little, working at the Shard Iron Works back then, he bought the place for 5, you know, he could have bought the whole Lawrence Ashline farm for 10. And come get into the bootleg in there and he paid it off in 1 year. He would have bought the whole farm because after that, Lawrence Ashline sold property all over the place, you know.
Huh.
But the bootlegging there was money to be made.
Oh, yeah.
Did
Almost everybody was bootlegging. Not everybody, but
You
almost.
know Duquette, you know why he left that, he took a bullet, you know. Yeah.
I got Albert Duquette's brother, what was his name?
Emil.
Emil. Definitely his uncle. In the newspaper, he said definitely that the Kipling, that Emil went down to Mexico, and it said, man caught with droopy drawers. He had sold
Well, you buy some silver back then.
the silver in the drawers,
He
they
got
were
caught smuggling
droopy.
silver across the border.
And he got caught when he went to
Well,
Boga.
he didn't come home that early that spring. He usually come home, but I think he spent a few months in the jail.
Yeah, they went.
This guy here had more money than God, you know, he didn't need to be smuggling, but he used to come home, he'd go to Mexico, and he'd come home, and he'd have Kahlua and cookies and coffee, and everything you could buy for nothing in Mexico, and he'd bring it back in his van, and he'd get up here, he'd sell it.
He got caught.
Remember that L.C. Starks shot that guy in Cooperville? They were chasing him, he was bootlegging, and they shot him when he crossed the bridge.
Yeah, we talked about that
Oh, yeah.
last time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember Raymond Iggy told me that.
You know,
Yeah.
he came down the back road, was shut off, now we can't go across the there.
Yeah, okay.
Came down that road, and the police officer from Rogers Point,
L.C. Stark, I think.
I know his name, I can't say it. He was standing on the road, and he went by him, he was flagging to stop. He stopped. Well, no, he was after and shot, right?
Oh, I know that road.
Cut the jugular vein right here. And he went down the road, When my grandfather lived on Lake Shore Road, Cape Shore, and he got out of his car, and he sat on the end of the boat, and the sun was coming out. He said, "Dude, if somebody could only plug this vein," he said, "I'd be all right." But he
Yeah.
kept bleeding.
Didn't work out.
He died right there.
So let's go back. Last week we talked about Abood Store, which is on the corner of Mason and Bayshard Road by the bridge. Right now it's, I guess Chad Poyer owns.
Where Florida's house is.
Yeah, yeah.
On the other side of the
So,
bridge?
so in the
On the other
twenties,
side of the river.
And this Abood that you're talking about, was it Bob Abood's father?
Eddie will know that, I
Bob
don't
Abood that
know.
lived on Mason
Yeah,
Road,
Roy
just above
Abood
me a
was,
little ways.
Edward
Bob
Abood.
No, that was his
Oh,
brother.
it's Edward.
This was Edward.
There was Edward on the other side of the river, and Roy on this side. Roy Abood was next to you, and Edward was on the other side of the river.
Yeah, because I remember Bob Abood, wasn't it?
Bob
He was
the
a
boy.
school.
That was his son, Bob, I think.
Eddie.
And then Roy raised turkeys on the river there. He had pens on the edge of the river. They used to raise turkeys, take orders.
Yeah.
Thanksgiving time, he'd hire a bunch of people and dress them out and they'd sell
Yeah,
them.
those guys.
Yeah.
It
The
says-
custom officer was Sam Dixon.
Yes,
Sam Dixon, that's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
He's the one that shot the
yes.
kid.
So Edward Abood bought that building in 1919, and up above, there's space for entertainment. And there was a kind of a bowling alley up there with pins set up at one end and a channel made along a bench that was against the wall as for the ball return. And Fred Morris told me you had to be quick and raise your feet when the ball came back. It's right there under your feet. He said, I remember being taken once in the ankle very clearly. So he got hit. So another thing were box socials at the hall that were held by the church. Judge Warren Smith was the auctioneer for the box socials. The ladies made lunches that were auctioned off to the highest bidder. Ed Bayshard told me you didn't want to wink or move your head or you had a pie. Other entertainment there was Jiminy, a minstrel performer. He came on a regular basis to sing and dance. And let me read this here. The shows cost 25 cents. Ed Fozier was the one who took the tickets at the top of the stairs. And Old Wallace Jeanette, anybody know who that was?
Yes.
Yeah. He kind of threw a little fit because they were charging 35 cents when Father Walter LaRock was coming to speak at the hall. And Old Wallace Jeanette refused to pay the extra 10 cents. And there was a fight, and Mr. Jeanette kind of was thrown down the stairs.
Father LaRock, he's the one that opened the church, because that church was closed.
Mm-hmm.
The church was closed, and
He came back home.
he came and he went around to the people and said, you want to go back to church? They said, yes.
Mhm.
Okay, then I'm going to open the church. Because the people had to have the Sheedy priest come down and say mass, and the Sheedy priest closed the church, just like they did it now.
Yep, just like now.
Just like they did it now.
Though it's not Shazy's fault now.
It was, the priest from Sheedy did it.
Mhm.
And when they closed the church for Father LaRock, he was born in Copenhagen.
Yep.
And he came back and he opened it up and was running ever since.
Mhm.
Until they closed it again.
Till we close it now. Mhm. I guess there's not as much fun in Coopersville as there was business in Coopersville, because we're not getting as many stories
Is the
tonight.
river, did they have a dock down by the river, the people that came up by boat, did they?
For the church?
Yeah, to the church, did people come by boat?
Maybe there was.
with the show?
Not too many.
Not too many.
You know,
People
There's a big-
would,
There's a big chunk of cement down there by the river, you know, at the end of the cemetery on the river, you know. I was just wondering if it was a part of a dock that they used to have there or something.
there were people who would drive horse and buggy up the lake and then up the river for church. the Beauclair family used to come from Shazy that way.
I remember
in
going
the
to
winter.
church with a sled in the wintertime, because in the wintertime, my father would put his long tape board on, put it away for the winter, he wouldn't use it. And he used a sled and a horse, and he used, us kids, used to go in there, and the horse was hitched when you struck, his legs would hit
Yeah, the back.
the back of the sled, and where they, duck, 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 duck. And by winding up to the church, boy, he was licking the sled. And when he turned to the driver there, I thought we were going to tip over.
You was in a hurry to stop.
And there was, there used to be a whole ring of stalls for horses.
Yeah,
And the father put one of the stalls, and put a blanket over the horse, and go to church. And come back out, and get back in the sled, and go back home. And when, a lot of people, instead of using a horse, they walk to church. And we were coming down, my father was driving the horse, but sitting behind the horse. The horse is not in the middle of the sled, he's to one side on the sled. My father was sitting and I was sitting where the open space was, where my father was supposed to be sitting so you could see what he was doing. And there was Smita walking in the track of the other sled went by. The horse
Run it over.
was trying to run away, his head over his head. Boy, he jumps out of that matter and tells can't you see where you're going? And all kind of swearing words. There was other people walking in the road came back in. He said to Eldrick, my father, Eldrick, said, why don't you sit on the other side where I was? My father said, get out of there. I got it out. You guys sat with it.
Probably got more wind where you
You
were,
could
it's
see,
colder.
could see where he was going.
It was colder where you were too.
Eddie, when you were a student, and this is for you too, Ken, when you were going to the one-room school, did you have recess?
Which school?
The one room, when you went to school at the old schoolhouse, was there recess?
I don't think so. I don't remember it being a recess. I can't remember. I don't remember having it.
You remember skipping school? Remember skipping school? Once in a while not showing up, yeah?
I used to watch.
Yeah,
There was a time, I remember it was cold as hell, but my mother used to put a scarf, and just like 2 eyes. My mouth and everything was
You
all
lived,
covered.
back then you lived on the, where Don Bay Shore was, right? The farm there, the house?
Yeah,
The
that's
brick
right.
house there,
That's
yeah.
right, that's right.
So that wasn't too far a walk to school back then?
Oh, it was at least a mile.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah, yeah, it's a long way.
School way up past the church then?
Yeah.
Yeah. I always, I never,
Well, you were bundled up.
I always brought my dinner to school with a lunch pail and ate at school, but a lot of kids would go back home and eat. The 4 years old all went back home. They would eat at school. Actually, I used to bring their lunch. Laura used to bring his lunch. Yeah, Laura used to bring that right to school with a horseback. So, my sister Jane said to Kenna, I signed a fortune. Can we have a ride on your horse? He said, yeah. He drove his horse where the fence was, and they climbed on the fence, then they climbed on the horse. So they were running up and down the road. I picked the bed full of gravel and threw in the horse, and the horse went jumping,
Off they
running
came.
around. My sister falls right off the horse. The school teacher comes out the door and says, get up, don't come back with that horse to school anymore.
I used to ride my, yeah, I used to ride my tricycle to school after that.
expanding this a little and beyond Coopersville a little bit, and just look at some kinds of entertainment that was popular.
If the church burned in 34, I'm trying to think of when it opened, was it 37?
You mean when it reopened?
Yes, because if they did rebuild it that quickly, their card parties must have been quite successful, wouldn't you think?
They were all
Because they
very-
had to rebuild it in the interior completely, but what I wanted to say about Coopersville is, maybe it wasn't entertainment, but it was really a comfort. Al brought me there, it was his home parish, for Christmas Eve midnight mass, 50. And it was such a simple and uncomplicated interior, not all this paintings and so on, so like we had. It's stark white, the poinsettias were redder than anything I'd ever seen. The choir sang in French, and it was just as good as the one in Gardner, Massachusetts. And I walked out of there after that mass, and I felt I had experienced something magical. And I've never forgotten that midnight mass at St. Joseph's in Coopersville. And it was, you look forward to the next year coming so you can go again. If that was entertainment, Shannon, it was the ultimate.
That is true.
With all the French Canadians in Coopersville, were there many people in Coopersville who didn't go to St. Joseph's Church?
Yeah, most of them did, went to church.
I mean, was everybody Catholic? It can't be everybody was Catholic.
Fred Moore's was not Catholic.
The only one I knew of didn't go to church was Forgage. He was Catholic, but he was living with a woman that he wasn't married to.
He was ahead of his time.
Even in Coopersville.
He used to come to church. Father Gary didn't like that, you know, because he was married, he was living with a woman he wasn't married to. And he had kids. So one day, Father Gary takes a little stick through the book, where his pew is, he nails a little stick across the pew.
We couldn't go in.
He couldn't go in.
Box his way.
So you get to church, you do like that, and look at this, turn around, went home, never came back.
Never came back. Yeah.
Never came back. That was that. Never come back to church. Because he had nailed a stick across his pew, he couldn't go in.
Guess he didn't. He didn't want to tell him face to face, but he got his message across.
And
Well,
you
don't you
mentioned
mention-
Lois Bay Shore. That's bringing back a memory. If I'm not mistaken, I think Lois Bay Shore's farm was where Benedict Bay Shore, on that corner coming around, the brick house, Dick Castine. You're right, and that was Lois Bay Shores. I remember going there as a little girl because the Mayos were married into the Victor family, which was on my grandmother's side, and we went there because Lois would have been one of the Mayo brothers' father-in-law. His daughter Rose was married, and I know that's where we went. Where Dick Castine, on the bend there, on your Mason Road, and that was Lois.
Rose and his son was
Philip, his son was Philip.
The one that,
Philip?
there was another one. He was, he had the farm up in the custom house.
Victor.
Victor.
The Victor Bayshore?
Yep,
Yeah.
Victor?
Victor, yep.
Yeah, Moses, Victor wanted to buy the farm, Moses would sell it. And he was hurt by the farm over there.
That was a big farm up there.
Yeah. Moses, Bayshore, he's the one who made the cross on the church, on the steeple.
Oh, he is, okay.
He's the one that, he used to work iron, you know.
Good fabrication,
Yeah, and so the cross on the church, he's the one that made it,
Is that right?
from scratch. Old Bishop.
Small world.
Yeah.
Moe's used to have a racetrack. Just, well, on the Champlain side of the farm, that field there. And they had racehorses there, they run around the track a lot.
One baseball used to race on the lake too. Because my father said that he was just a spectator, you know, watching him do racing. My father told me the name of the other guy that was racing, it was side by side. But he was crowding in, you could hear the horseshoes hit the wheel and the silking, you know, that tick. Both hollers out, keep your place, keep your place. My father told me that.
So what would, I don't know, I can't remember when the railroad station was gone from Coopersville, but I'm wondering if, when it was here, did people get on the train and come to the movies in Rouse's Point or Shazy, where they had movie theaters?
Where was the railroad station in Cooperville?
Is up
Well,
by
where the schoolhouse is.
Oh, really?
Yeah, near the,
Well, I'm working on 29, it seems to me I hit that the other day, that they were going to close the station in Cooperville because it wasn't used enough.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking 1929, whether they closed it that year or within a year or two.
I remember.
That was in the North
I
Country.
remember when they closed it. Joel LaFag is the one that tore it down, moved that out of there. Joel LaFag, he had a truck.
I think the moral of the story is if you have something local,
My father,
use it. Don't go someplace else. If you want to keep what you have,
my brother, me, and my sister, he said, I'm gonna show you that, he said, because you're never gonna see it again. He took us to the railroad station, then he took us to the bridge in Coopersville, because the bridge used to open up with a hand brake.
the train bridge or the car bridge?
Used to go like that.
Car bridge.
Also, we do the same thing with the railroad.
Before that one,
It used to open up at the same way.
Yeah, that was permanent, that bridge
that was
there.
before this one. That was, that didn't have the crank, I don't think. But that was before, the bridge before this one.
Yeah. So, that's how that, my father took us to the boat before the shore, and they say you're never gonna see it again. But it's so long ago, I know how they remember it. I was just a little kid.
you have a very good memory. You do.
Well, I will say that in 1996, 98, when we had the ice storm, Coopersville kind of returned to its own little world again. And because we couldn't get anywhere else, all of a sudden we were visiting with neighbors, we were going to breakfast at neighbors, and we got a taste of what it was like before before roads and cars let everybody go wherever they wanted to go to do their shopping and everything. So as it wasn't exactly fun when the ice storm happened, but it returned that sense of community to us for a little bit.
That's when you found out the good people and the bad people. When nobody wanted to help, and then, you know, everybody else helped, you know, it really brought the best out of a lot of people.
It did.
You know, majority.
I remember that the section men used to have the little carts, and they were all had a thing there.
Yep.
The railroad, yeah.
On the railroad.
And then another guy doing the same thing, another one there, and then they would go right around on the track.
And all the tools with them there, repairing the tracks, taking whatever they needed, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hate that. Sometimes there was 5, 6 men on that thing, you know, doing that,
Yeah.
pushing the car.
Yeah.
It's true.
See, they finally fixed our railroad track there up in the, near the marina there. The other day,
Oh, they did fix it?
They closed the
Yeah,
railroad.
is that why the road was closed?
Yeah.
They fixed it all. It was really bad. Some of those ties were taking,
Remember the plow getting hooked there with a snowplow in the winter, you know?
Yeah.
And, or the signals went open, so they go around, plow the road.
I could close them with, I had my remote control on my car. I don't know, it must have been programmed on the same one as those
Really?
two gates. Never, was their whole I did that, you know, when nobody was coming, but the gates would close, you know?
That was, that was
See,
where
when
Joe
Teddy Hunter
got,
got killed in, Clement Menard,
he had a big store
they had those signals
there,
there, and then,
gas station.
and I had just seen them two guys, they just went by, because I had a piece of land down on the river, and I had to go, so I get up the river, up the
Joe
road,
for that,
train had hit him. Never stopped, they got to the Stetson Road.
when you got up there,
We didn't
when I
hear.
tried
You know what,
to-
I want everybody to keep visiting, but I'm gonna wrap up the official part of the show here.
towards Blackbird.
And I just want to
right
mention
in that
that
area
this
there.
Sunday from 1 to 5, we're having an old-fashioned schoolhouse social on the grounds of the schoolhouse. Everybody's invited to come. We're gonna have games for kids, an old-fashioned spelling bee.
was on the
We're gonna
right.
have quilting demonstration, square dance demonstration. What else are we having, Gogo?
Petting zoo. We're having-
Petting zoo,
Right, and we have the bake sale.
some food, a bake sale, so come on over.
And a raffle.
And
We're
a-
gonna raffle
yep,
off 3 baskets.
And then we're gonna throw all the sticks in the water that we've been selling for our
I
fundraiser.
want to mention that tonight,
Was
on
on
my back porch, I got 5 patio doors there looking at the river.
9,
Your sticks in the water, you better
Right on
be
that
careful
corner.
because the water
Yeah.
was going
That was-
north to
Well-
Champlain.
It was?
Yes.
That's a problem.
Joe for that.
So you better wait, if there's any south wind at all, your stick,
can't
because the
remember.
lake level now is so low, it's almost in the back of my house,
That's where
near the
Joe
bridge.
You
It's
have a store
almost
there,
like lake
gas
level.
station.
So if you got a little bit of a south wind, all the leaves and
Yeah.
little sticks are
Going
going,
the wrong way.
they're going to
Okay.
Route
Side
11
the road.
bridge
Well-
instead of Cooperville Bridge.
Where,
Okay,
So,
we'll watch out
you
for
know,
that.
Maggie is
But if
down.
you get a rain or something, it'll
Little
start
bar.
to flow again, but if there's any
Right-hand
south
side.
wind at all,
We've got a problem.
nobody's gonna win.
Okay, okay. Thanks, everybody, for being here. We've got some
Go the other
refreshments.
side. Go first one across the
Thanks,
street.
guys.